Hi everybody, I'm State Senator Mike Simmons and candidate for Congress in Illinois' 9th District. My life story starts right here in the 9th District. I'm proud to have grown up in Lincoln Square in public housing, newly built scatter site public housing that was built in the early 1980s as a result of a landmark 1976 U.S. Supreme Court decision that desegregated public housing in Chicago. I'm one of the first black families to move into the far north side of Chicago. As the son of an Ethiopian asylum seeker and an African-American mother, and being a state senator now representing nearly 250,000 people. My educational journey, I like to always talk about, starts when I was bullied as an LGBTQ youth in our local schools as a teenager. I really feel a strong degree that I am prepared to serve in Congress for this community because so much of what it means to fight the Trump administration is going to mean taking on bullies. It's going to mean knowing how to recognize the hate that I have always experienced as a black queer man, and fighting it like I always have, and surviving these hateful systems that are trying to swallow up communities like ours in the 9th District all the time. When I came to the state senate in 2021, I ran against the establishment, and I want to give a shout out to 48th Ward Neighbors for Justice and all the independent precinct organizations that opened up that process, brought some sunshine into that process, and helped the community to see a different type of leader who actually comes from this community, and not just someone who comes from wealth and privilege. And so February 6, 2021, I became the first openly LGBTQ state senator and the first Ethiopian American to ever serve in the Illinois Senate. And I'm proud to have made that history, serving the far north side of Chicago, where in the last 4.5 years, I've been able to pass 50 bills into law. Many of the bills that I have passed have been worked on with the community in a co-governing process where working with our neighborhood activist organizations and community-based organizations. I'm proud to have led the fight to pass Illinois' new child tax credit, which is a tax cut for working class people, people who are struggling to take care of their kids all across the state of Illinois, particularly on the far north side of Chicago, where 1 out of 3 of the households that I represent is headed by a single parent. And as somebody who grew up in public housing and grew up in a family where we had to make awful, undignified decisions between whether we were going to be able to pay for heat or going to be able to put food on the table or be able to go to the doctor. I'm also proud to have worked on legislation that erases medical debt. We just got an estimate a week ago that $430 million of medical debt has been removed for 357,000 households across the state of Illinois. That's a big deal when we talk about the overall fight to get the universal health care. And I'm also proud to have been an environmental champion in the state senate where I've brought forward a number of bills that are now law, including a bill that I passed in SB 727 during the lame duck session of 2025, which codifies EPA protections around water quality that were put in place under President Biden. And I anticipated that Donald Trump would eradicate those protections, and that's exactly what happened a year after my bill passed just earlier this spring. I've also been a really strong champion for protecting our waterways, protecting our green spaces, and forest preserves from overdevelopment. In the 9th Congressional District, we have so many people that are experiencing double-digit rent increases, that are experiencing not being able to purchase their first home. And I'm proud in the Illinois Senate that I've brought forward many bills that would make it easier for people for renters to be protected. I just passed legislation out of the Senate during the veto session, which bans 11 junk fees that are imposed on renters. I brought forward legislation that creates a new cooperative housing fund in Illinois, and just several other bills that help us to address homelessness. I've been proud to push back against complacent Democrats who say all the right things and pay a lot of consultants to give them a lot of boilerplate that is not helping anybody be able to deal with the cost of living crisis in our country or the affordability crisis, and it's certainly not helping to bring down rent for households that have been buildings that have been purchased up by corporate private equity landlords. That's the type of leadership I would bring to Congress. Also, transit. We got to talk about transit. I'm really proud in a state senate that a big part of my accomplishments have been fighting, speaking truth to power on the issue of transit, public transit. The reality is we don't hear people in Congress talking about public transit because they don't use it. And transit-rich communities like ours in the 9th District deserve a loud and passionate voice on public transit from a member who actually uses our buses and trains and actually understands what it means to be ghost busted, or to be on the train late at night and know that a loved one of yours is being catcalled, where there are no transit ambassadors and there are no services to make the experience safer for all. And also a public transit system that's just more modern and more reliable and more interconnected. In the Illinois Senate, I have passed more than half a dozen bills that make our streets safer for pedestrians and cyclists. I'm also an avid cyclist myself. I really believe in this as a way that we reduce our carbon emissions in the transit sector, is to make it more fun for people to bike the way they do in Copenhagen, the way they do in Amsterdam. We could do that in the 9th District across Northern Illinois. I did no less than 6 town halls in the 7th Senate District on transit. I'm proud to have helped to pass Senate Bill 2011, which ushers in a new generation and new era of public transit. That's going to mean we have bus rapid transit, more frequent, reliable public transit services, and just so many other reforms that were long overdue, and the revenue to be able to accomplish that. I also am really proud in the state Senate to have pushed back on complacent Democrats that for example, take pictures with queer lawmakers like me at Pride Parade, but then don't speak up in caucus when we're trying to get legislation moving forward out of committee that would protect gender-affirming care. That's a fight that I fought. I introduced legislation to make Illinois a sanctuary state for trans communities in 2022, and there was a point when I was not going to be allowed to bring my bill up for a vote. It shouldn't take me as the only openly queer member of the Illinois Senate to raise a stink about that and make my colleagues feel uncomfortable to let that bill come up for a vote. But that's the fight, and I'm proud to have led that fight, and we are now a sanctuary state for trans communities across this country in Illinois as a result of that legislation. And that's the type of fight that I'm going to bring to Congress from the 9th District. Mental health parity is an issue that is so important, and we don't hear anybody in Congress talking about this issue. I'm proud in the state Senate that I have passed several pieces of legislation, including legislation that creates the new Youth Mental Health Council, which is comprised of diverse and queer youth who are advising the state on mental health policy as a result of legislation I brought forth. I'm also proud to have signed on to the Human Rights Advocacy Protection Act earlier this year, because that is the right thing to do. So in Congress, our district is one of the most diverse districts in the country, and we're going to need strong moral leadership when it comes to foreign policy. I have said that I am haunted by the images that I see in the media of tens of thousands of Palestinians who have been killed, who have died as a result of bombing of innocent civilians, displacement, starvation, starving children. And those are the types of things that I cannot accept. It is a generational issue that we are seeing a genocide play out in Gaza, and people should be willing to say that, because that is what it is. That is the Declaration of International Genocide Scholars, and we need someone from the 9th District who is going to have moral clarity on that. I will be proud to be a vote for the Block the Bombs Act. I would be proud to work with my colleague Delia Ramirez to pass that legislation, and I support stopping arms sales to Israel as long as there's a genocide playing out in Gaza. I don't want to equivocate on this, and I think that whoever our member of Congress is should have strong moral clarity on this issue, and I will bring just that. Look, I don't come from wealth and privilege, but I'm proud that I'm not taking corporate PAC money. I'm proud that I'm not taking a dime from AIPAC. I will not even meet with AIPAC. I am proud to be raising money from the community. I can't wait to get to Congress and introduce campaign finance reform so that we can have small dollar match programs, public financing, so that we get better quality candidates, and particularly progressives that are able to run for office. I represent Donald Trump's worst nightmare. I'm black, I'm gay, I'm outspoken, I'm intelligent, I'm an effective legislator. I know how to go toe to toe and fight the beast that has made prey of me and my communities my whole life. That is the type of fighter that we need right now. And I think that in this field of folks that are running for the 9th Congressional District has the deepest roots and deepest connections to the district, has suffered the most in terms of economic inequities, in terms of growing up in a household where my mother was on and off Medicaid and struggled to access abortion care, growing up in a household where I, as a queer youth, was bullied, growing up in a household where my grandmother worked 2 double 8-hour job shifts back to back, threw her back out and had to go on disability for the rest of her life while raising me and my family in public housing. That is the perspective that is desperately needed in Congress right now. The 9th District needs its representative to punch above their weight, not just for our diverse communities that have been targeted by ICE, that have been targeted by the Medicaid cuts, that have been targeted by hospital closures and all the other policy violence that leaves us reeling. But also, we're going to have to be a leader for the rest of the country right now on what it means to really move forward on an agenda that invest in our cities and our housing and our healthcare systems for the first time in a generation, or that invest in real protections for reproductive rights and for LGBTQ rights, or that invest on making America continue to be a sanctuary for persecuted people from all over the world, the same way it was for my father and so many immigrant communities in the 9th District. And when I get to Congress, I want to be a loud champion for public transit. I want to be a loud champion for public housing. I want to be a loud champion for cutting the defense budget 20% so that we can pay for healthcare and housing and Pell Grants so that kids can go to college the way I did, and to pay for it to be possible for people to go to college and universities for free. I believe in that. That's the vision that I have for our country, and that is why I'm running for Congress.